my way home. Can't wait to see you. I'm on my way home. Can't wait to see you. I'm on my way home. Can't wait to see you. I'm on my way home. Can't wait to see you. I'm on my way home. Can't wait to see you. I'm on my way home. Can't wait to see you.
All right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is David Patrick Harry with Church of the Eternal Logos. And tonight, we are going to be getting into technological atrophy, the loss of skills, memory, and learning. And so tonight's stream should be, it may be a little bit somber compared to some others. So it's not going to be as uplifting. We're going to be looking at the detrimental consequences of technology in our lives. And this was due to actually a one-on-one conversation I had with somebody, signed up for a one-on-one, and talking about the effects of technology and how it begins to atrophy so many of the characteristics that are central to what it means to be a human. And I have so many articles to show you guys today that I don't even know which ones to read. I was going through them. There's a lot of good ones. There's a couple that I've picked out in particular. But there's so many articles on the negative effects of technology. For instance, what's called the Google effect. And that is the effect on our own memory. And how, again, central is our own memory to what it means to be a human. And we are probably have all met people with Alzheimer's and having to deal with that unfortunate disease. I know my grandmother died. When she passed away, she had Alzheimer's, and she eventually got to a point where she couldn't even recognize me and my dad, who would go see her so regularly, and he was her son, only son. And so I couldn't help, again, so we're just going to extrapolate. We're just going to play a little thought game today. And again, what the loss of memory does to all of us. And this is part of this Google effect that we're going to read about the over saturation of information. And this is part of the sort of paradoxical situation we find ourselves in. And I've talked about how in my opening notes here that technology amplifies the abstraction and this paradox that in a world where we're more connected than ever, we've never been more isolated, because some of these detrimental effects, again, it's memory, it's literacy rates, it's IQ rates, it's interpersonal communication skills, it's critical thinking skills, it's empathy, it's attention spans, it's language and communication, reading comprehension, relationships. All these things are being negatively impacted by technology at large. Now, of course, we can't just throw technology out, because just theoretically, where do you draw the line? Is the printing press, that's technology. The book, the book is this is technology, right? So where do you end technology and begin it? Certainly the digital technologies of the 20th century have had effects on us that we can't even imagine. And now we're living in a state, 2022, these have certainly, the internet, let's say you got mail with, was it Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks, and it was that 1994, 95, is sort of the benchmark, at least in my mind, of where the internet becomes so normalized, and mail and all the online activity, or personal computers, going to the coffee shop on your laptop, and the effect is now in full force. I mean, that is literally almost 30 years ago. And so 30 years of processes working on our society, working on our psyche as individuals, that we, I think, again, I've talked about, and shout out to Father Turbo. If you guys didn't catch my previous conversation with Father Turbo on the occult, but I mentioned in a previous stream, in the previous stream, where I talked about political correctness and the sort of policing of language is ultimately the policing of thought. All you have to do is look at the philosophy of language. Everybody associates language with thought. And so the policing of language itself set a precedent for the physical lockdown that we may have seen in 2020 or are most likely going to continue to see in the future. And so, all this stuff has really been prepared through digital technologies. I wonder how much without the digital technologies of the situations would we be living in. For example, birth rates, relationship longevity, divorce rates. I have articles showing how the technology has had negative impacts upon that. And you can't help but again question, where would we be if there was no digital technologies? Now, I imagine, as we'll read one of the articles, a lot of you guys probably be lost, because Google Maps, and this has had a effect on our cognitive understanding of space and moving through space, and how actually it's caused a lot of people to not develop historical characteristics of being able to situate yourself within space and time and navigate. And I think that, I imagine a lot of us have been affected by that, but that's such a subtle one, right? You got you're driving, you got your cell phone up, it's in this little holster, and then you hit Google Maps or Apple Maps or whatever, and it's telling you step-by-step driving instructions, and then you go somewhere. And it notice how prevalent it is that people can't remember how to get back from somewhere when they go through that step-by-step instruction. This is part of this phenomenon where transhumanism, we're so worried about transhumanism. But where did transhumanism, that process has already begun, right? Because the emphatic emphasis and our dependency upon technology has already transitioned and sort of mortified who we are as human beings. We're something different already. And Again, we'll look at empathy. So empathy, in one of the articles, it talks about how empathy has gone down in the digital age with the rise of social media and all this stuff. Why are we less empathetic? I thought we're more connected. I thought we'd be more human. I thought we'd be more communal. But we see that's the opposite. As technology increases, we actually become less empathetic towards people. We can actually watch images of people getting hurt, and it doesn't affect us the same way as it used to. Why is that? And you see how are we still the same species? I would say, yes, we are, clearly. But we're moving that transhumanist project. It's already happened. It's already occurring, I should say. We're in the process of. And so, I don't know why people on the conservative side are so pro Elon Musk. Oh, Elon Musk, did you see his meme? He tweeted about Trudeau and Hitler. Are you kidding me? The dude, it's like we have to make sure, again, we don't get trapped into these faux dialectics, false oppositions, because the dude's throwing up 5G satellites, and he, his Neuralink. I saw Mark Dice post videos about all the monkeys that he's used and died, and people are now being volunteered for the Neuralink process. This is scary stuff. This is especially as we see the rise, or I guess it's really not even a rise. It's always been there, but the sort of totalitarian globalist spirit. The youth leaders of the World Economic Forum certainly on the rise in all around the world. And that includes Putin himself. I mean, if you guys just... So we have to, again, be careful with the false dialectics. This whole, I see the Orthodox stuff, like, base Putin. To me, that is, I know I'm off topic here, but again, that's it's part of this sort of technological atrophy, the inability, because critical thinking, that's also another, I got multiple articles, I mean, probably like 20 some articles on different things that it has had a negative impact, but critical thinking, the ability to analyze situations and information is on a dramatic decline. People can't even take in information, sort it within their own mental categories, and then come up with their own understanding. And so you see that also the lowering of IQ rates. I have an article showing you guys that historically IQ has always been like this, slowly getting better and better and better and better. And now, for the first time in history and recorded since IQ tests, I won't say history, but at least since the recording of these IQ tests, we're seeing it go down. People's average IQs are getting lower. People are becoming dumber. What is this? Guys, smash that like if you can. Would greatly appreciate that. Everybody who's joined, smash that like. But what's going on? How is our IQ? Again, we are in the information age. That these digital technologies, the internet, the personal computers, all this stuff is supposed to provide us more information, more knowledge. And yet at the same time, we see that our memories are getting worse. The ability to do math. One of the things that even doing the one-on-one, which brought up this conversation, but go to your local wherever. How many Gen Zers can even do mental math? The dependency on the calculator. When we were in school and they're trying to tell you, you can't take the algebra exam with the calculator or whatever. They were right. They were actually right. That now these young kids, they literally can't even do basic math. They cannot even think. And it's all tied together because mathematics itself is just numerical logic. And so we're again, transhumanism, it's already happening. We're already in the process. We're already losing the image of God. And so interpersonal skills, this is another one. Vocabulary, the ability to articulate oneself. This stuff is dependent upon actual in-person communication and being able to read, being able to use language, being able to express oneself. How is it that in this information age, people are actually becoming worse at expressing themselves, right? Again, that's one of the precursors for all these technologies is, well, you get on social media, it's for self-expression, and you want your true you. We all have our own truth. And at the same time, people are getting worse at expressing themselves. So what's happening is People are becoming more and more and more and more like each other in the name of uniqueness. And we already see this. And I don't need to point any specific examples that might get flagged, but I mean, you're seeing it in the way people dress. Oh, Supreme or all white, Nike Air Forces and I'm not even going to go into brands or anything like that. Again, we can all like nice things, so that's another discussion. But what my point is in this technological age, especially, again, this last 30 years, that in the name of self-expression, in the name of individuation, in the name of individualism and creativity and uniqueness, that's all being lost. And that's that paradox. We're in a paradox. We're more connected than ever in human history, globally, digitally, yet at the same time, we are more isolated as people. That we have more information at our fingertips, and this is one of the beauties of orthodoxy, right? How many of us have come to orthodoxy right now, and we would have never even found out about it without the internet. We would have never found out about it without articles and people posting videos and streaming and all this different stuff has helped express the eternal truth of Eastern Orthodox Christianity, of which this is really the first time in history that orthodoxy's gone around the entire globe and now can be expressed and found anywhere. So technology, again, it works in positive ways. Everything, God has good and bad to all things, but there's more information than ever, and yet people are actually dumber. And I'm not kidding. The article actually shows this. People are actually dumber in the last 30 years. What is going on? And so relationships, this comes down to the relationships. You want to talk about, different agendas that are going on globally. Well, how many people are able to find partners, make babies, have constructive relations, have just friendships? All this stuff is actually, according to research all around the world, it's actually getting worse. Why is it that people can't make friends as well? Well, you can get on and play Call of Duty with a headset and do XYZ, but when it comes to real life friends, when it comes to people that will actually come to your aid in an emergency, when it comes to people that will actually trust you with, XYZ, it's actually getting worse, which is, again, part of the isolation. And at the same time, we're more connected. It's a paradox. We're in this really interesting paradox right now. And then this whole idea of freedom. Well, the internet, it allows for freedom. It allows for, free choice, free expression. You can find anything, pornography, all this stuff. It's freedom, right? It's the true libertarian spirit. And at the same time, people are more mentally enslaved than ever. Could 2020 happen without the digital technologies? Could they have rounded people up and kept them in their homes, kept them fearful over something that wasn't, again, no medical advice here, but at least from the CDC and the World Health Organization, from what I've seen, official sources, not that deadly. Not a high mortality rate. Could they have done that without this digital technology? And so it makes you question, is technology the Tower of Babel? I mean, it seems like it to a degree. I've talked about maybe the zeros and ones of coding language, or at least of technology to some degree. Is that the primordial sort of the language of the Tower of Babel now? Is this how, I've theorized before privately, is the artificial intelligence, is the global AI going to be the incarnation of Satan? Does Satan have to have fallen men and women create technologies in their fallen image as opposed to in the image of God? Does Satan have to enter the world and control the world through man-made technologies? And that's what all this stuff is? I don't know. That's a little theological spin that one could certainly postulate. But what it brings then is the question of what does it even mean to be a human? Because that is under attack. And that's really what they're trying to change. They're trying to make sure that the definition of what it means to be human, and again, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but certainly there's been some evidence of different court systems saying that if you are genetically modified in one way or another, that you're no longer technically Homo sapien, a human being, that you're not afforded the same rights. Again, look that up. Not me. No, I'm not going to go into it. But what does it mean to be human? And so as Orthodox Christians, we can't not answer this question, but somewhat theologically. And so when I think about it, the first thing, when I try to think about what does it mean to be a human? What does it mean to be a man? The first thing has to be being made in the image of God. Now, obviously, a lot of people don't have that presupposition, and they may have Darwinian theories of why we are differentiated from the animal kingdom one way or another. Okay. But as Christians, what it means to be human fundamentally is to be made in the image of God, and that is to participate in activities, energetic activities that the rest of the animal kingdom, that the rest of creation itself is not privy to. And so therefore, at the most fundamental level, when you think of it as an Orthodox Christian, what is more fundamental of what it means to be a human, what it means to be a man, than to focus our attention on God, to focus our attention on something that isn't necessarily, it is to agree, it is to not, that you can see. It seems so irrational. And maybe it is to some people, but to be human, again, I've seen even within religious studies, people make the claim that we're like homo religious or something like that. Like the fundamental, the primordial thing about what differentiates humanity from the animal kingdom is like this spiritual religious impulse, this transcendental yearning to some degree. And so therefore, as Orthodox Christians, what it means to be human at the most basic level is to engage in those uncreated energies of God. Because that's what differentiates us from the rest of creation. The rest of fallen creation, the animal kingdom, the lions on the Serengeti, they don't understand mercy and compassion in the same way. But I saw a video and a female lion had a baby zebra friend. Okay, there certainly are going to be exceptions. There's certainly going to be nuanced circumstances. But that is not the same thing as human compassion, human mercy, praying for somebody who's persecuting you. These are calls. Christ is calling us. The Bible, the tradition is calling us to respond to the world in a way that involves us participating in things that the rest of the animal kingdom is not. And so, whether it be mercy, compassion, love, whether it be language, the logos, the Alpha and the Omega, the Word of God, whether it be logic and reason, we notice that as we look at these technologies, all of these things in an abstract way are under attack. They're all being lessened. They're all getting worse. So, it makes you think, well, what is going on with all this technology stuff? Is there some type of theological thing going on here behind the technology? It's hard to say. Is it sort of an occult process? Is it, I'm reading a book that's very interesting right now. I highly recommend. It's called The Myth of Disenchantment. So Disenchantment, and I'm going to be going in on disenchantment in my next stream. It's a theory put forward by the sociologist Max Weber. But this gentleman, this scholar, it's a really good book. I do recommend it. Now, obviously, he's not Orthodox Christian or Christian, at that matter, but he's arguing that magic, modernity, and the birth of the human sciences are not tied to this disenchantment process where magic and mysticism's receding to the fringes of society due to rationalization. He argues that science itself is a sort of magical process, and that when you look at many of the major figures throughout the progression or evolution or history of science itself, they're very much interested in the occult. They're very much interested in theosophy or spiritualism. And so he makes a very interesting argument. I'd have to give it to him. It's a very interesting book, worthwhile reading, but it's The Myth of Disenchantment. He's arguing that the whole disenchantment myth itself, or the theory of disenchantment is a myth, because it as a process itself is rooted within magic and mysticism and all these different things. We'll get into this in the next stream Wednesday. But moving along here then, what does it mean to be a human? Well, certainly outside of being made in the image of God and therefore participating in God's uncreated energies, what comes then is the care and help for others. This self-sacrificial impulse within us, right? Again, the Christ is the full embodiment of that self-sacrificial impulse. See, nobody could be more self-sacrificial than to die for the wrongs of the entire world, of which none are yours. So you see, however you want to understand that, at the literal level, at the sort of archetypal level, there you can't be more self-sacrificial than the work of Christ. And so we then engage in that to some degree by caring and helping for others. And so this, as we see with these technologies, empathy is on the decline. Empathy is on the decline. And so we are losing that aspect of what it means to be human, to really be concerned with the well-being of others. Once we establish our own well-being, the well-being of others and caring for other people. That also relates to creating loving relationships, spouse and children. So again, we'll see technology, the rates of birth dramatically decreasing, the rates of marriage dramatically decreasing, the rates of divorce on the incline. So apparently technology is having an influence on our own ability to create loving relationships. But again, that's part of what it means to be a human, is to have that relationship with God, to have your focus on something transcendent, to have that personal relationship with the Almighty. That is essential to what it means to be human. And yet, it's on the decline. And so we can participate in that in space and time by having families, by meeting people, by getting married, by engaging in loving relations. That also includes your friends, your buddies. How truthful are your friendships? Are your friendships only friends because the activities that you guys do together? Or are you friends outside of that? Are you friends beyond just activities? Are you friends because of the authenticity and the truthfulness of your relationship? That's what we should strive for. That is way more human than just being friends because we participate in an activity together, and that's really the only bonding force between us. What does it mean to be human? Accomplish goals that help others. We need to be able to focus ourselves in a way that we can come up with goals in the future, work towards things every single day, because the lack of a goal is going to lead to the lack of meaning. Because I have another article in here that shows the increase in consumerism. So as technology has grown, as social medias have proliferated, consumerism and consumeristic tendencies and the influence technology has on consumerism has also increased. So we see these things have direct correlations, and I would argue that to some degree, of course, we're always going to consume, but it's the nature of the fallenness, it's the nature of eating, it's the nature of death itself. But to be producers, to be creators, right? Again, creating life, creating jobs, creating relationships, creating loving homes. We need to create in response to this technological atrophying of these potentials. We are atrophying. We are losing things. These are all muscles, to agree. Again, that's what atrophy is, right? An atrophy is when, okay, you hurt your shoulder, you can't move your arm, and all of a sudden all the muscles in your arm begin to atrophy. They get smaller. They begin to die. And that's what we're seeing. Because ultimately, this technological atrophying is a sort of death of the human being made in the image of God. That's why it's a transhumanist. It's already in the process of this transhumanist agenda. We're already moving towards our death. We're already moving towards the eradication of God's image in us. And so ultimately, then, this last point I have on what does it mean to be human is to live a meaningful life. Don't you want people to be there when you die? Don't you want people to be standing over your casket and they may have tears in their eyes, but at the same time, they loved you. They appreciated you. They remember the good and the bad. We want to live meaningful lives. And this technology, this technological atrophying is atrophying all the capabilities and all the ways in which we actually build those relationships with other people. And so my final conclusion here is that we must find a middle path. Going out into the woods and living in a cabin and trying to find some woman who is willing to do that with you probably isn't likely and isn't going to be the most efficacious way to respond to the state of the world. What we're going to need is to become more disciplined. And this is the ways in which we use our phones, use our screen times, use our computers. I've noticed this in myself on the days that I have to research, the days I have to write papers. If I get on social media earlier in the day, it affects my productivity. It affects my mental clarity. It affects my ability to sit and hold thoughts for longer periods of time. And this is, again, we'll see in one of the articles with memories, is memory centers, centers that just do research on memory are finding that young people in their 20s are having senior moments. That the ability to mentally recall information is at the level of a senior citizen was or is. That shows you how serious this stuff is. And once I say that, that may scare some of you. Like, oh crap, I start talking all the time and forget what I'm saying. Well, maybe there's something more there. Maybe this is part of how much screen time you're on your computer or you're on your cell phone, because this is causing people to forget to even be able to hold thoughts, to hold information. So we need to find a middle path where we become more disciplined, that we're going to use these technologies, these tools, which can be tools, but also every tool then works back on us in some way or another, that we use them in a disciplined, a thoughtful way. And so this also means that we need to make sure that we do things more in 3 dimensions. Or I guess not 3 dimensions. We'll just say space and time. Like, there's a reason why I have all these books, physical books, because it forces me to detach from all the lights, the dopamine hits. Just being on, just reading a Kindle is affecting the ways in which you can actually retain the information. We'll have an article looking at that just reading online, reading off tablets, actually lowers people's retention of what it is that they're reading. So we need, as thoughtful, deliberate, Orthodox Christians, we need to make sure that we're going back to regular books. We build a library, have information. Your library is your brain, because we may forget everything. Again, part of the Google effect. We can't be so dependent upon the technology. We also need to think about building our own libraries, and that way everybody's library is different. Maybe you're into horticulture, maybe you're into farming, and you're into permaculture and that's where your library, and you have the best books. Maybe that's your thing, but reading, it showed, again, literacy rates. It's for the first time in American history since recorded that literacy is going down, because people are texting in PPL and LOL, and they can't even form full words. They can't read full sentences. They can't comprehend full pages of text. And so what do you think is going to happen to somebody who can't remember, who can't critically think, who can't navigate even space and time without Google Maps, they're going to be controlled. That's the programming. The programming is that this system is programming technology, and that technology is programmed, and we then are depending on the technology to do things that we ourselves could do, that we should do. And in so doing, we then are becoming programmed by being dependent on the technology to do the things that we should be able to still do. Do you see what I'm saying here? And so we need to make sure that we are rooted in reality. That is a big one. And therefore have tangible skills. Have tangible skills. Now I know a lot of great people in our community. They're programmers. They build things digitally, and okay, that's their thing. Note taken. But maybe they're going to have to compensate. Again, maybe if they're taking what I'm saying seriously and a lot of this information, maybe that means that when they get off work, they need to compensate in ways in which they don't engage in the cell phone or the personal computer or limit that activity because they're more engrossed into those technologies during the day. I don't know. But we need to have tangible skills. We need to have tangible skills because all it takes is the grid going out. And how many people, what do you think is going to happen if the grid goes out and we have dumber people, we have more illiterate people, we have more impulsive people, and we have people who can't critically think, and we have people who are less empathetic? What do you think society is going to look like if the grid goes down and everybody has to fend for themselves? That means we need to already be living in physical reality. We need to have 1 foot in the digital world, 1 foot, or maybe 2 feet, and just peeking our head into the digital world. I don't know, 2 feet in physical reality. But we have to find that middle path. Because at the same time, it's not like we can just leave the technology. Like, again, I hope maybe this stream will be useful. I know the conversation that I had with Father Turbo, a lot of people found useful. Shout out to Patristic Faith. That's a digital activity. That's an online activity. That's a digital technological access to information. And so maybe we need to purify, we need to sanctify the ways in which we're using technology because, again, we are atrophying ourselves. We're atrophying our memories big time, our literacy, our empathy, our attention spans. And this is where I've noticed it the most. I think my literacy is fairly good. I think my literacy in regards to memory is fairly good, but I've noticed social media has absolutely affected my attention span. The days that I wake up or I'm on social media or I'm getting the Twitter hits or something's going on or the trucker convoy or Trudeau did this or Putin did that, and then I'm getting filled with it. When I try to sit down with no stimulus, no music, just quietness, my own thoughts, and me needing to express something or me needing to acquire information, it becomes more challenging. The days that I wake up and I put that stuff to the side and I just start getting into the things I need to do, much more mental clarity, much better and stronger attention spans. Our language and communication. Try to be more articulate because that's part of it. We'll see in some of these articles. People can't communicate anymore. Try to make sure that your relationships in your life, your parents, your friends, your loved one, they are strong, real relationships. Your IQ is being affected, your interpersonal skills and your critical thinking, all of which are being atrophied. So anyways, that's what we're going to get into today, looking at some articles after this. Guys, smash that like if you guys could. Would greatly appreciate it. Smash that like. Going to do a quick little housekeeping that want to say first thing is it's good to be back. It's been about a week since I've streamed. I've been very busy with some academic papers that I'm writing, of which will eventually be up at the website for purchase. So if you want to read about, I got a paper on metaphysics from Kant to Kant, basically Kant's metaphysics and his impact upon 19th century empiricism and German idealism as really two strands of thought that are really prominent and have a lot of influence into the 20th century. And then I have another paper that I've talked about before, the tracing the technologies of transcendence, where I look at the use of inebriating substances. I classify them also as technologies because using the Greek word techne, meaning a means to an end, a technology is, or a technique, a techne is something that you implement to acquire, as a means to an end. And so I trace that from the ancient mystery traditions into medieval heresies that within Western Europe may be contributed to psychedelic mushroom ingestion, and then tie that into the development of the Western esoteric traditions and people like Blavatsky and Crowley and all that type of stuff. So those will be for purchase eventually. I want to make sure they're a little bit better, but I've been working on those. That's why I haven't been as productive over here on the streaming side. Also want to say, guys, if you would like to become a website member, please do. It's going to be the best way to support this stream. If you appreciate what I'm doing here at Church of the Eternal Logos, I'm going to have a new members-only video up. Probably, maybe I'll record that tomorrow night, potentially. But tomorrow is our last book club meeting for the Master and Margarita. So shout out to all my diehards. Again, there's a few of us. There's a handful of us. Shout out to you guys. Love the book club group. So we'll be wrapping up and concluding The Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov. Really good book. Our last meeting is going to be tomorrow night. And so if you guys have suggestions, I've been trying to think about what book we're going to do next for the book club. I've been looking at books. A lot of people have been suggesting Dostoevsky. I'm very open to it. It's just those books are so thick, and I don't know how many people are going to be able to stay up by reading each section each time we meet. I am very excited. We've had a lot of fun. Again, our book club doing The Master and Margarita has been really fun, really good. Great group of people. Everybody that you know who you are. If you're watching, you know who you are. So I've been really trying to think about the next book. If you guys have good suggestions or you want to join the book club, reach out to me. Leave a comment underneath this video because after tomorrow, we'll have our last meeting. We'll probably bat around some other options. And then eventually, maybe the week or two, I'll throw up the next book club meeting. Also, if you guys are interested in signing up for a one-on-one session, we got some slots still available for this Thursday. If you'd like to talk about theology or philosophy or mysticism or magic or fitness or goal setting or the state of the world, you can sign up for a personal one-on-one session using the link just posted here in the live chat. And that would be incredibly beneficial to myself. And then we can dive into, you'll have my undivided attention to get into any topic that you would be most interested in. And so that really concludes the announcements. Also, watch out for, again, the Disenchantment stream. I want to do a stream on Disenchantment maybe Wednesday. I think that Friday we'll have Rachel Wilson on to talk about the occult origins of feminism. So a lot of good stuff. So stay tuned. Definitely stay tuned to what's going on. Anyways, guys, let's just get into today's topic. So here you guys can see that, 5 ways technology continues to impact consumer behavior. I just want to show you guys some of the articles that I have. Tons. And this is just scraping a few together. 30 key child literacy stats parents need to be aware of. This is scary. Again, this is from 2019. 50% of adults cannot read a book written at an 8th grade level. Yeah, that's pretty scary. 57% of students failed the California Standards Test in English. What? Again, and we'll look a little bit more at this article. There's a lot of good stuff in this one. Here's another one that's really good. Smartphone, dumb human. 5 ways technology is reducing your overall intelligence. I wanted to read this article. I thought this article was pretty good. We're going to read the entirety of this article. But scientists reveal how smartphones make us dumber. This is another article. And again, I'll share all these links with you guys here in the live chat. Here's a Utah State University. A new study shows the impact of technology on relationships. That the use of technology is actually lowering the amount that people actually have sexual intercourse. I'm talking about married people. Isn't that hard? Okay, what? Yeah, technology and smartphones are actually affecting the amount of sex married couples have because some people are so concerned and consumed with social media consumption. And they they sort of become a little bit less personal. Their minds in different places, and they don't want to be intimate with their partner in the evening. Crazy stuff. Again, here's an academic article from Loyola University in Chicago School of Law, Rethinking Technology's Impact on Empathy. And he has a lot of research. We're not going to read this whole thing, but this is an academic article showing that technology is actually making us less empathetic, i.e. making us less human to a degree. So we're more connected, but we're less able to relate to other people as ourselves. Which is tied to another thing that we'll see is that technology is actually increasing the instances of narcissism. And so social media, likes, that digital feedback that people get, it's causing more people to become narcissistic. Therefore, they're only concerned with their own desires, their own goals. And this is leading then to again, it all feeds onto each other, which leads into the divorce rates. Because people becoming more narcissistic are less likely to be willing to compromise, less likely to deal with struggles, deal with uncomfortable situations with other people. And so if they're inconvenienced, well, we might as well just get a divorce. And of course, that emphasis on their own satisfaction has detrimental consequences to the children that they've already chosen to create. And in fact, and it shows a lot of people are just choosing not to even have children. So here's another article. Here's another article. Are screens robbing us from the capacity for deep reading? It shows that the symptoms of atrophying our attention, which is I know that's a fact because I felt it, as I said before. It affects me. The more screen time I have, the less I'm able to focus on my reading or my writing specifically. I notice it most when I have to write things. Also, guys, if you would like to support tonight's stream, feel free to throw in a super chat using the Streamlabs link. I would greatly appreciate that if you guys could. Please throw in a Streamlabs link. I know that it looks like Jerry's already thrown it there. If you guys want to super chat, have a question, or just want to support the stream, feel free to do that, and we'll get to the super chats at the end here. So yeah, screens are robbing us from deep reading, and that's why we need to read. One of the best ways to make sure that you're going to fight back mentally, cognitively, by being able to retain information, memorize information, think critically, is to make sure you can read and comprehend things when you read. A lot of people can't. And that was that first article. Over 50% of American adults, 50%, guys, can't even read at an 8th grade level. Do you think they're reading scripture? Do you think they're going to read the Bible? Do you think they're going to come to a better understanding of who Christ is, the Word incarnate? Oh, boy. Here's another article on, is the internet killing our brains? The web gives us access to endless information. What impact does this have on our memory and our attention spans? And this is an article that shows, again, that the bombardment of information. So basically what's happening in regards to some of the memory processes is that we are being bombarded with so much information through our digital technologies that the brain can't actually process it the way that normally. So as you walk out into the world and you walk through a meadow or you walk through a forest or you're over at your friend's house and you guys have experiences, the brain is built to process that information. Right? It can process it. It can put it in categories. You can recall it later. You can think about it. And it happens in a very linear way. The technology is so bombarding you and your brain. It's information overload, which also gives you dopamine effects. So you become addicted to the information overload. But at the same time, your brain can't process all the information that's coming in. And so therefore, you can't memorize it because it was never fully processed. So that is, again, that's just another article. I got tons of articles that we haven't got to yet. Another one here is, what is technology doing to our brains? 6 reasons technology is affecting divorce rates. Like I said, again, money, social media, because technology, the money's a big one in regards to, again, it happens to both, but, men and women, but, ladies, we're going to be a little critical here. Women are more likely to file for divorce than men are. That's just a statistical fact that out of married couples, women, especially in the last, again, 30 years, in the last 30 years since you've got mail, right? We'll use that as our demarcation. In the last 30 years, just about 30 years, women file for the majority of divorce. In some cases, up to 75-80% of the time, the woman is filing for divorce. Is it because men are that bad? Or is it because of these narratives that social media perpetuate that actually allows women to feel more to feel like they're missing out, right? That they're not getting the vacations to Greece with the trays of floating food in the infinity pool. They're not going to Santorini. They're not having, XYZ that they see on social media. So because of, again, women can post information because of the sexualization, and we as men are highly influential through the sexualization, that because they can post photos of themselves and therefore acquire a sort of currency in our culture, that that feedback loop develops aspects of narcissism. And so then when they're in committed relationships, when they're in marriages and they find themselves to be unhappy, they tend to, some of them, and I'm going to, not everybody, but on the average rates, they tend to file for divorce. They're quick to jump ship. And it's due to their own pleasure senses, right? I'm not being pleased. I'm not being satisfied. My needs are not being met in the way that I want. And of course, men are doing this too. And men are certainly doing this in ways in regards to the desires for the physical attraction of their lady or maybe attributes that a man wants. So it can go both ways. But if we look at divorce rates, not even close. It's not even close. Women are filing for divorce at much higher rates than men are. And so I think that the social media, it'd be very interesting to do a deep dive, not that we'll be able to do that today, but a deep dive into how social media affects men and women differently. That men, I would assume, feel like they're unsuccessful because they're not getting the Mercedes-Benz. They're not having the $1 million home. Therefore, they're less successful. And again, unless they're not on social media, they're probably not weighed down with these thoughts of unsuccess. But I would assume that women, because of this sort of sexual dimension of social media and the sexual currency that we live in, and then the feminist narrative, is that it affects narcissistic tendencies probably more so in women, which then causes, again, the young girls to be so upset that you have, again, 12-year-old, 13-year-old girls getting lip injections, getting their butts done. It's like, whoa, what is going on? So clearly the beauty thing, the posting of photos and getting likes, it's certainly affecting females at a different rate, which I would assume then is affecting divorce rates and the ability to establish long-lasting relationships. Here's another article, Science in the World, Certainty and Controversy. Technology's effect on interpersonal relationships. It's showing that, again, people are not as interested in each other. So you see three people sitting on a bench and they're all on their phone. They're all on their smartphone, because one of the negative attributes of all the technology is that people are less interested in actually getting to know the depth of something. So it's not just relationships. Now, obviously that's a dimension of it, but it could just be your friend. It could just be a friend that you're not as interested in knowing what is actually going on in their lives, what is actually bothering them, what is actually something that they need to express to you, and that then they just want somebody to hear and to respond to. That people, they're just not as interested. They'd rather just flip over their phone, or they'll just talk about it through text message. That's another thing. How many of us privilege text messaging over calling people? I personally hate it because my thumbs, I always have typos when I'm texting. I'd much rather just speak, just call me. But at the same time, unless you're somebody who I'm expecting to call me, I don't want to talk to you. And so I'm affected by that technological sentiment that I'm sure a lot of us are, that, you don't want to, people want to call you all the time. Well, just, if it's just a thing, a real quick thing, just text it. Just send me a message. I'm the same way. But generally speaking, if it's about, I'm not a real big communicator except with a few people. And so I'd rather just talk on the phone than send messages. But you can see even texting and people privileging texting is a less personal way than just hearing somebody's voice or FaceTiming with somebody. Those are certainly more personal ways that people prefer. I'll just send a text message. It's less personal. And that's what this article is getting at, is that it's affecting interpersonal relationships, men with men, not romantic, just friends, women and women, that people just aren't as interested in talking to each other. Guys, also, I forgot to say, as I go through these articles, post which ones you want me to read, because I only got a couple that I really want to read, and I guess we'll just see where that takes us. But if one of these articles you really want to hear from, I'll definitely read. We're not even halfway through all these articles. Here's another. What is this? What the heck? I don't know what this is. Here's an academic article on narcissism and problematic social media use, a systematic literature review. And so it shows that the relationship between narcissism and social media use has been a topic of research. This one talks about problematic. Most of its research has to do with Facebook. So it analyzes Facebook, and they have what's called problematic Facebook use. And so they saw that people who are more on Facebook, who have a problematic use of Facebook, tend to have more narcissistic tendencies. Well, what is that? Well, and so their articles showed that it's not, because they got samples from different social media. So social media, what is Facebook? Facebook is my photos. Facebook is my life. Facebook is me. I'm checking in. I'm going to the club. I'm going to the really nice restaurant. Look, I'm drinking my red wine, pinkies out. That Facebook is more about you sort of demonstrating your life, which again, getting those likes is that narcissistic buildup. So I would suspect apps like Facebook and Instagram have way more likelihood to contribute to narcissistic tendencies than other social media apps where maybe it's more content driven as opposed to really a focus on the self. I would say problematic uses of LinkedIn. I don't know. Maybe that's not a good one either, because that's kind of your resume, but you get my point. That was the general premise of this article as I read through it, is they found that people who had problematic uses of Facebook had directly correlated higher instances of narcissism, clinical narcissism. Here's another one, how technology is warping my memory. Again, we've already talked about this, and I guarantee you that all of us have noticed this, that maybe you've watched interviews with people from the 60s or 70s or 80s, and that they can recall, I remember, on January 18th, 1958, that was one of the best days. I'm affected by this. I can hardly, every day bleeds into each other. I'm terrible at being able to have a memory that can reflect upon each day and what I did. If I sit there and think about it, I can call it up and I can think about it. I've noticed with myself, my memory, I've really developed a good memory for concepts. I can read books. I can read books. I can go to these streams. I can take in information, acquire concepts, and once I get those in my mind, I basically got them. I've grasped them. But when it comes to reciting specific words, that's something that I got to work on. I noticed because one of it was talking about memory for example, a prayer, scripture. How many of you guys have things memorized? I'm terrible at that. I have basically zilch in my mind that I can just call from memory. I can just quote a psalm. I can just quote a whole, chapter or a whole section of scripture. I can't. Even my prayer book, I have prayers that I've read, hundreds of times. And if you ask me right now, hey, can you, what's that prayer? Can you recite it for me? No. And so I have a real memory. That's one of the things that I want to focus on really focus on moving forward is I want to begin memorizing prayers out of the prayer book, memorizing prayers outside the Jesus prayer. It's a little simple, but outside the Jesus prayer that I can recite, that I can say, that on demand I can give you a nice prayer, because I can't. I am terrible at that, and I'm sure others of you are as well. Here's an article on technology is on the rise while IQ is on the decline. And this talks about, again, since IQ tests have even been around, that we're seeing a negative correlation. So since we've been recording IQ tests, and again, if you've read the books like the Bell Curve, that as standardized tests go, the IQ test is a pretty good one, generally speaking, that the average IQ is going down due to, again, the atrophying that technology is having on our brains, on our minds, on our communications, on our relationships. It's all connected, right? It's all connected. Which is tied to, again, when I talked about this abstraction, because the abstraction is, okay, before technology, let's say 200, 300 years ago, you were embedded within a sort of life world that was really local. You knew your baker, you knew the barber, you knew the mayor, you knew who over here, you know who does this. Everybody knows each other, whether you're in Cologne, Germany, whether you're in, Florence, Italy, whether you're in Antioch, Turkey, wherever it is. That's how the nature of the world was before the telephone, before the radio, right? So let's go 300 years ago. So your world wasn't as quote unquote connected with so many people, but the quality, and it was all personal. It was a one-to-one. Remember, again, we've talked about the theology of the one-to-one relationship in Orthodoxy. Any of the uncreated energies of God, they must be done on a singular one-to-one level. You cannot love an abstraction. You can only love another person. You can only love another animal even. But again, even the animals can't fully participate in love. They don't know what that is. So this abstraction is like now instead of being plugged into a local community, right? Before we were plugged into a local community of people 300 years ago. Now we're in a global connected community where we're on the internet right now. We're having this live chat. We're doing these things. We're in a global community, which is more abstract. It's not as this, and so it's a further abstraction, right, from the one-to-one personal relationships we used to have. Anyways, this one's on IQ levels, seeing the IQs go down. Here's another one on is technology producing a decline in critical thinking and analysis. Here's another article from UCLA talking about that the ability to analyze information, take in information, critically reflect upon it is actually on the decline. It's becoming more and more difficult for people to take in information and critically reflect, to analyze things. And so is it any surprise that the state of the world and maybe propaganda for maybe potentially something like a Great Reset or something like that, maybe that's going to have a more efficacious effect on people just because for the fact that they can't even think critically. Even if, and this is where we've talked about before, it's like some of these people, even if you laid out the rational, logical argument, the information, they're all about the science, you lay out the numbers, you lay out the studies, you show it to them, they literally cannot even reflect upon it to come to their own conclusion. They literally lack the critical thinking skills. That is one of the most individuating aspects of ourselves that we could have as people, is to be able to look at information and critically reflect on it. And so we have our own opinion, right? We used to have a diversity of opinions. Part of the monolithic opinion is due to the fact that people can't critically think, so they come to the opinion that they were told to have. Does that help put things into perspective regarding what we're seeing in the world to some degree? I would think so. So here's another article on critical analysis. Here's one on the Google effect. And so maybe I'll just read a paragraph. I'll move this one up to the front here. Because the Google effect is this memory problem. Right here it is. I'll just read this paragraph. Though attached to a specific company and name, the Google effect actually refers to our tendency to forget readily available information aggregated on the internet. The paper to propose this phenomenon dates back to July 2011 and blames the perceived high availability of information for our propensity to not recall that information. So because information is so easily available and because there's so much of it, you actually can't even remember it. And so there's another study. Well, again, maybe I'll remember it as we go through here. There was a study on school kids. They did a controlled analysis of school kids they had access. One group had access to the internet for school presentations, and they had access to the internet during the presentation. Another group of kids did not have access to the internet. They had to use books, and they did not have access to the internet during their presentations. What do you think they found? The kids that had access to the internet had much higher difficulty rates of recalling the things that they presented on actually knowing the information. Exactly, again, this general Google effect that is happening to all of us. They conducted a total of 4 sub-studies, which together concluded that we remember how and where to access facts better than we remember the facts themselves. Why? Because we're bombarded. There's so many facts, our brains literally can't process it. But we can remember that, if I go to this website, if I go to this way, I remember if I put this into the search engine, if I could just see the logo of the website, then I'll remember. But you can't remember the actual information that you're trying to put into your head. That's the Google effect. And that is happening to all of us right now. In a sense, we rely on the vastness of the internet to externally and collectively store our memories. So we were talking about, you want to talk about these singularity enthusiasts, that you're going to upload your consciousness to a computer, and that we're already doing it. That's my point in the opening monologue, is that the transhumanist project is already underway. Grounded in the belief that we can retrieve them later. We can draw multiple practical conclusions from the experiment and the follow-up studies that validate its results. We find it more difficult to remember something when it's easily accessible. We have gotten better at remembering how to retrieve information, or 3, a combination of the above 2 conclusions. When we bring this within the scope of education, we must look at both the mitigating and many of the drawbacks. So here, this is a paper from Penn State University. This is an academic article. This is not from Google or anything like that. This is an academic article looking at the Google effect. And I'll read this whole article, actually. I'll read it here in a bit. This will be one that I'll read. Okay, and then moving on, there was some more here. Decline of info. Okay, yada, yada. Low literacy levels among the U.S. adults could be costing the economy. Okay, no, we don't care about the economic, but what's interesting is that the Barbara Bush Foundation found that Americans are actually lowering their literacy rates. We're becoming more illiterate. More illiterate, guys. This is in 2020. This is during the pandemic. Oh, my gosh. Look, 54% of U.S. adults, 130 million people, lack proficiency in literacy, reading below the equivalent of a 6th grade level. 130 million people in our country can't even read at a 6th grade level. Do you think if we were still in an earlier era where most information was done through books, and that if we perpetuated that, for the next, if we were doing that for, let's say, the last 30 years, do you think that would still be as high? Or, the illiteracy rate to be as high? Of course not. That's a shocking number for several reasons. Yeah, that's real shocking. 54% of American adults can't even read at a 6th grade level. Social media fuels narcissists' worst desires, making reasoned debate near possible. So this talks about how, as a narcissist, social media actually amplifies your narcissism. So if you are a narcissism, let's say just out of the gate, it's not influenced or developed through long-term social media use, that you're just a narcissism, that narcissists then acquire more success on social media sites. And of course that relates to then the debating of information and all that. 5 ways technology continues to impact consumer behavior. So we find that as technology has progressed, again, as all these aspects of ourselves atrophy, our communication, our intelligence, our language skills, that we actually become bigger and bigger consumers. Because you get that dopamine hit when you consume, when you buy something, when you get a brand, when you're part of a movement, a brand movement, right? You get a dopamine hit. That this study here shows that that technology has been very influential, and not just marketing for companies, but getting people to buy more things. So when you look at the state of the world, and we clearly are seeing a sort of partnership between corporations and national governments, i.e. fascism, does it seem like it's going to stop when more people are more consumeristic than ever before? They actually get their morality from Nike. They actually listen to Colin Kaepernick. They actually buy the t-shirt from XYZ company because of their political branding or whatever. That's the state of the world we're living in. That's the atrophying of the actual person to just a consumer, and technology is absolutely influencing us to become more and more and more consumeristic. And so all we have to do is then look at Bezos, which I am guilty as heck. I am guilty as anybody else. I have a Prime membership and I buy books all the time. And I do it, unfortunately, because of the nature of my work. I feel like I'm almost stuck, because if I bought these books any other way, I wouldn't be able to get the same prices, the same access. And so I hate it. I find myself in this vicious feedback loop where the things that I need to do the work that I do requires me to then purchase things through a man who's capitalizing on this exact thing, that technology is making people more consumeristic. Here's a Duke study. More technology use linked to mental health issues. Well, nobody would have questioned that, of course. Negative effects of technology, what to know. This one's on, again, oh, really? So more technology, more experiences of isolation. I thought we're so super connected. More technology, more instances of depression and anxiety. Really? Who would have thought that? Physical health effects, eye strain. People's eyesights are getting worse because they're looking at their phone all the time, or they're looking at a screen all the time. Poor posture. This is a big one. Poor posture. Guys, how many people now, you go out in the world and you can literally just see like the way they're hunched over. You already know, again, and the guy's got thick glasses on, and he has very little protein. You can tell he's been taking in very little protein in his body, and he's got the hunchback, and some people may be genetic. That's one thing. But a lot of it is from people not developing the muscle around their skeletal system. Guys, again, 300 years ago, if you were a dude, you were outside working. Even if you didn't go to the gym, you didn't have to go to the gym. You'd have good posture because you had to help your uncle bay hail. You had to do XYZ. You had to do physical labor, whatever you did. Life was more physical. Now, men, they can go all the way to age 40 and hardly done any physical activity and just sit there in their bodies. It's unreal. And that's what this talks about, is a 5-year study on technology use in people's postures. Getting a good chair, lifting weights. That's why every man, not just your testosterone, go lift weights. Make sure that you build enough muscle around that skeletal system to keep your posture good. Sleep problems, that's another one. And that affects me. I'm up late because I'm always on technology. I'm an information addict, reading books or reading things online, taking in information, watching documentaries. I know for a fact that affects my sleep, and therefore causes me to use melatonin, which then melatonin alters my own endocrine system and my own hormonal balance and all this different stuff. So sleep problems, reduced physical activity, obesity, cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, premature death. Wow. Huh. It's almost as if they had a plan and they wanted more people to potentially, theoretically, just a thought, wanted more people to pass away, that they would create a scenario in which more people, they would perpetuate people's vulnerability to sit there and consume more technology because they know it actually harms them in the long run. Oh my gosh. And here's the last one, technology and sleep. So it shows, this is an intense study showing the major effect that technology has on your sleeping patterns, blue light effect, all this different stuff, which then the lack of sleep because of the technology, it means that you age faster. It means that you're, again, putting muscle on your skeletal system. It's harder to develop muscle if you're tired. If you're more tired, then you consume more caffeine. Your focus. So if you're tired, then your attention span is already lesser. So the lack of sleep then basically perpetuates all the negative things that we just talked about through all those articles. Your memory's worse. Everything we just talked about through all those articles is amplified by the fact that we also don't sleep the way that we should. So you can see how this is all having a major, major detrimental effect on us. Okay, so let's get back. I just want to throw a few more notes off this. This one was surprising to me. This was on literacy rates, and I just want to show you guys because I think some of this information is surprising. Again, currently, 45 million Americans are functionally illiterate and cannot read. Again, this article was from 2019 that says 45 million. The study done by Gallup, funded by the Barbara Bush Foundation, a year later, at least was published a year later. Let's see if I can find that one. No, let's see. Maybe it was this one. No. Anyways, don't worry about it. Maybe it was this one. Yeah, this one. 130 million people can't read at a 6th grade level. This one's saying that 45 million can't read at a 5th grade level. Therefore, they're functionally illiterate. 50% of adults cannot read a book written at an 8th grade level. 50%. 57% of students failed the California Standards test in English. 1/3 of 4th graders reached the proficient reading level. What? 33.3% of 4th graders actually read at the level they're supposed to. 25% of students in California school systems are able to perform basic reading skills. Basic reading skills. Do you think they're going to be able to navigate the world accurately? Do you think they're going to become individuated people? Do you think they're going to be able to see through potential propaganda and lies? Again, let's just theorize that we even lived in a world where those things exist. I know we don't live in a world like that, but theoretically, let's just say that we live in a world where they're dumbing people down deliberately to the point that only 1/4 of students in California school systems read at the basic reading skills. 1/4. 1/4 of California students in the California school system actually read at the correct reading level. 85% of juvenile offenders have problems reading. Wow. So I wonder if there's a correlation there. If the inability for children to take in information, to expand their minds, to learn about the world, to reflect on knowledge, relates to them being delinquents. Man, I bet that has an influence, again, on the society that we're living in, the rise in crime, the spike in crime rates, the normalization of crime. We can see, again, how this is tied to the technological atrophying of the human being. 3 out of 5 people in American prisons can't read. 3 out of 4 people on welfare can't read. So, 3 out of 4 people on welfare can't read. Theoretically, let's say that we lived in a world where the government wants to centralize power and they actually want to create a income basis where you are funded by your own government. That again, you have your own little, what is the title for it? Anyways, basically you get monthly checks, weekly checks from the government, right? Let's just pretend that there is like a group of really influential people that wanted to do that and to sort of pacify people. They'd probably want to make sure people became more illiterate. Again, one of the effects that technology is having on us. Again, here's an article that I wanted to share with you guys. I'm going to read this one real quick. It might be the only one I'm reading. I'm already at an hour and a half. Smartphone, dumb human. Basically it. 5 ways technology is reducing your overall intelligence. Guys, smash that like for anybody who hasn't yet. You'd be the first to say technology has enhanced your life. I think it said you wouldn't be the first to say technology has enhanced your life. How many days did you work from home last year? What about all the formerly wasted time waiting for friends to arrive at the bar? Now you happily check your email. Too bad the many smart gadgets in your life also cast a dark shadow. They are hurting your brain seriously, physically harming your brain structure. Let's begin with the fact that the use of GPS device most probably is affecting development in your hippocampus. Yes, the actual physical structures of your brain are being affected because of the way in which we're navigating the world through an app. Researchers at McGill University explained how there are 2 major ways of navigating through the world. A spatial navigation method used landmarks and visual cues to essentially create mental maps that help you understand both where you are now and how you can get to where you want to go. A stimulus response navigation method is traveling by memorized or provided directions, like the kind given to you by your GPS. After taking functional magnetic resonance imaging scans of 2 groups of older adults, GPS users and non-GPS users, the researchers found those who navigated spatially had higher activity and a higher volume of gray matter in the hippocampus when compared to the GPS users. Plus, they performed better on a test used to diagnose mild cognitive impairment. The study did not prove the lower gray matter directly resulted from the overuse of a GPS. However, taken together with the famous study of London cab drivers, it makes sense to turn off the GPS. Another way that you're being made dumb. Searching for answers on the internet or by any other technological device is just too easy. The generation effect refers to the discovery that we better understand and remember answers that have generated for ourselves in comparison to those answers we have simply read. If you solve a math problem, for example, you will have better recall of that answer later than if you merely provided, if it is provided for you on your iPad screen or by way of a calculator. Although scientists don't understand the underlying reasons entirely, many believe that reading an answer requires less cognitive work than generating one, and this accounts for the effect. No pain, no gain, essentially. Well, isn't the internet just one big prepared answer to all of your auto-corrected questions? Bingo. Playing video games and staring at a TV, updating your Facebook page, ordering food. Technology is helping you become less active, which in turn harms your body and your precious brain. Exercise has been shown to make it easier for the brain to grow new neuronal connections. The internet may boost interconnectivity in some areas of your brain, but your generally static lifestyle is at the same time upping the difficulty factor for your brain to create new connections, making it harder for you to learn, right? Again, your ability to actually learn information is hampered by the use of technology, these digital technologies. Because you generally move around less than you would if you weren't so entranced by tech, you are more rarely boosting your heart rate, and so you also have less oxygen pumping to your brain. Exercise has been shown to protect against Alzheimer's disease. Are you exercising while checking out YouTube? Technology does not give without taking. As old and boring as that sounds, it's the simple truth. After reviewing the literature, Patricia Greenfield, a development psychologist, found that any screen-based technology we use, including video games, will certainly enhance our visual spatial skills in beneficial or highly sophisticated ways, but only at the expense of developing other mental abilities, including critical thinking, knowledge, acquisition, and imagination. So you're gaining the ability of your brain to navigate the metaverse. You're gaining the ability to navigate a digital reality. But I'm sorry, you're losing your ability to critically think, to attain knowledge, and to have an active imagination that could be useful for you in your life. Sorry. Her article published in Science concluded that generally our contemporary technologies have weakened our capacity for deep processing, which can be developed through reading and extended text. Note to self, pick up a freaking book. That's exactly what I was saying, guys. You got to make sure you're reading actual books. Stop reading on devices. Stop reading on phones, on iPads, on Kindles. It's harming your memory retention. Again, there's an article, one of these articles was talking about how reading on a Kindle and reading an actual book, that if you read on an actual book, you memorize and remember so much more. Your online behavior has shaped your brain in ways you cannot easily escape. Because neurons and synapses adapt to circumstances, your time spent interacting with a computer means you are remodeling your brain. What do you do most of the time online? You skim and hop from link to link, check your email while waiting for a page load, you multitask. Unfortunately, all this multitasking means you've created an easily distracted brain. As Nicholas Carr recounts, researchers at Stanford gave a series of cognitive tests to one group of heavy media multitaskers and another group of light media multitaskers. The heavy multitaskers were found to be more easily distracted, less able to control their working memory. That's huge. Huge, your working memory. And less able to concentrate on a task when compared to the light multitaskers. Finding it hard to read a whole book, sit through a whole movie, join the parade. It's happening to everyone. None of this damage is permanent. If you want your brain to be another kind of brain, you simply have to spend more time doing something other than jabbing the tech needle directly into your vein. Yet, in all likelihood, as time passes, there will only be more technologies and entertainments on which you will be able to spend your time. One thing you need to remember is this. Along with the new games, you do not get more time. Spend what you've got wisely. Amen to that. Amen to that. Guys, make sure you smash that like for everybody's here. Again, it doesn't look like we have any super chats. If anybody would like to support Church of the Eternal Logos, you appreciate tonight's stream, you have a question, a comment, please super chat using the Streamlabs link if you could. Would greatly appreciate that. Always appreciate that. And then this was the last article. I can read this one real quick on the Google effect. Again, it's tied to that the generation effect, that if we actually go research, again, if you go and you research information out of a book, as opposed to, and you're going through the index and you got multiple books and you're going through your index and you're trying to put dots together and you're way more likely to memorize something. You're way more likely to be able to recall it. If you're just pulling it up on a website, you most likely are going to forget. You may remember the website, may remember a general aspect, but you're going to miss important points. And so here's talking about this Google effect. For one, the Google effect can cause students to build a heavy reliance on the internet for our learning. The underlying assumption that causes the effect to happen in the first place is the presence of the information. The fact we've subconsciously assumed nothing will sever our connection to it. What happens if we find ourselves in a situation with no internet access? How could that possibly happen? And we still need to learn. Chances are we would scramble externally for the necessary foundational knowledge, whereas it should have stuck with us from the first time around. Yet during the first time around, we don't internalize the knowledge soundly because we, quote, know we can just find it later. This cycle of dependence will affect students in one way or another and could ultimately revolutionize our entire thoughts process to be more incomplete. Under that reality, our brain would only take a part way to the answer, and the search engine would muscle through the rest. Again, technological atrophy. Technological atrophy, it's literally your memory recall is the search engine. We must stay vigilant in not taking the resources for granted and thinking that they'll remain available to at any time. Remember, guys, this is research from Penn State. This is from the Penn State. When Google spoon-fed us answers, we lose an opportunity to challenge ourselves. Though no definitive research exists for this specific aspect of the Google effect, I believe that if we continue to associate learning, Google, and low effort, we may fall into a lull of complacency in terms of thinking critically. From there, the complacency could cause our memory to atrophy. Our neurons are just like muscles, which must fire to stay sharp. We must begin to think, quote, since the end result is the retrieval of information, why take the harder route when I can just let Google do the thinking? Though we cannot predict the magnitude of this shift, we will have less desire to really push and engage our minds when faced with learning. In reality, the end result far surpasses just the retrieval of information and should also reflect innovation and creation. That involves much more than a few keystrokes and clicks. Students should use Google in a way that doesn't inhibit our natural learning with shortcuts that lead to more dependence and less critical thinking. Search engines and the internet can't act as the sole means to the end, but rather as one of the many critical thinking tools in our possession. Education, the internet's relationship must proceed with caution as we travel deeper into the digital. And so let me share a lot of these links with you guys here. So these are all going to be in the live chat. Here is this Penn State article. If you guys want to read the child's literacy article, here is that. Here is this is what I thought this was one of the better articles, again, on how 5 reasons why you're becoming dumb. That's why I read this one. Here's that article. Again, here's this article on scientists reveal how smartphones make us dumber. If you want to read that one. Here's the article on new study shows the impact of technology on relationships, detrimental. Rethinking technology's impact on empathy. Oop. Here is the article on screens are robbing us the ability of deep reading. Fact. Here is the internet, how the internet is killing our brains and our abilities to remember and think. Here's another article on what technology is doing to our brain. 6 reasons technology is affecting divorce rates. Here's one on technology's effect on interpersonal relationships. Here's one on narcissism and the problematic Facebook usage. Here's one on technology warping our memories. Here's one on technology and is on the rise, and what's on the lowering is our IQ levels, that we're literally becoming dumber. Here's one on technology producing a decline in critical thinking and the ability to analyze information. Here's one on the low literacy rates in the United States, that unfortunately 54% of American adults can't read at a 6th grade level, according to a recent Gallup poll done in 2020. Here's an article on social media fuels narcissists. Here's one on 5 ways technology continues to impact our consumer behavior. Here's one from Duke University on more technology use linked to mental health issues. And here is one on, this was the one on negative effects of technology. No, this one is a really good article too. I like this. This was from Medical News Today. And then this is the effect of technology on our sleep. So there's all those links, guys, for you. That is going to conclude today's stream on technology, our technological atrophy. Again, the loss of memory, of skills, of learning, of our literacy, of our empathy, of our IQ, our critical thinking, our language, our relationships. All this stuff is sadly on the decline. So I'm going to get to the super chats now. So guys, please, if you would appreciate what we're doing here, please support Church of the Eternal Logos by throwing in a super chat. I greatly appreciate it. We're going to go ahead and take those now. First one comes from Mikhail, the King of Kings. Shout out to our brother. Wow, throws in $20. Thank you so much, Mikhail. Thank you very, very much, brother, for the $20. He says, God bless, brother. Well, geez, God bless you, man. I hope you're doing well. I'd love to hear an update on your newer parish. It sounds like you found a great community to be a part of. So God bless you, brother. Thank you so much for the support, man. You have been such a continual supporter of Church of the Eternal Logos, man. I really, really appreciate it. God bless you, brother. I appreciate your friendship, and God bless you, man. Thank you for the support. I really, really appreciate it. So shout out to Mikhail, the King of Kings, one of our mods in the chat. And guys, just general shout out to all the mods. Really appreciate all the mods and everything, and all the help, the sharing the links and everything. Thank you guys very, very much. Next super chat comes from Derek Cutchy. And he throws in $9.99. Thank you very much, Derek Cutchy. He says, dropping truth bombs out here, brother. Kind of unrelated, but do you have any tips for my first great Lent? God bless. Yeah. So my suggestions for your first great Lent would definitely be, make sure you go to church. Make sure you're a part of all the services, those which you can attend. For your first one, again, talk to your priest. Do not take any of my advice over your priest. Talk to your priest. But my priest advocated ingratiating the move into the Great Lenten Fast. I failed spectacularly last time I tried. And so it's always then fasting then, especially the Lenten fast for that period of time has been very difficult for me. So I'm doing baby steps, incremental steps, coming up with my priest or spiritual father, a way to navigate that Lenten fast. If for your first Lent, maybe that's something maybe you're really good at fasting. And in that case, all the power to you, brother. All the power to you. Purify. But for your first great Lent, I would definitely recommend getting into the spirit. This is the big holiday. This is the big Christian celebration, right? Again, as Westerners, we're kind of accustomed to Christmas, but it's the resurrection. It's the Great Lent. And so I do recommend, out of all the books, this is a pretty good book by Father Schmemann, Great Lent, Journey to Pascha. I do recommend this book. I read this book with Subdeacon Mark in my church, and it was really useful. So maybe you're looking for something, some reading material, again, at night, wanting to try to stay off, tons of consumption on the internet. That might be a good book to read periodically as we move through Lent, and you can better understand it. It gives a really good, digestible theological understanding of Great Lent, what it means, how we understand it as the church. And so that's by Father Alexander Schmemann. Maybe that would be something you might be interested in. So I would say if that's potentially something, check that out. But yeah, for Great Lent, just go to the services, be a part of the church community. And thank God, again, hopefully you're in a parish right now where you don't have to mask up. They don't have a passport waiting for you to enter. So if that's the case, this is, a great opportunity to experience the entire Great Lent journey to Pascha. I just know that from people I've talked to, and even this was a topic of conversation this past Sunday yesterday at church, is some of the newer members who were catechumens that are now part of the church were really worried about the fast and everything. And so again, talk with your priest. I don't know where you're at. Again, maybe you're cool with that, but the warming up, taking baby steps, developing incrementally into that Great Lenten fast, I would recommend. Maybe work something out with your priest. Maybe you're going, the full Lenten fast, maybe 4 days a week. Or again, that's something you got to talk with your priest. Do not take my opinion on that, but that might be something worth looking into. And then reading the book, reading scripture, that's another thing with the Lenten, as we move to Pascha is, make it a time where you don't miss your prayers, right? This is a good opportunity for all of us. I'm talking to myself, is that from, especially as we move into Lent, don't miss a prayer every single night. Maybe you're just reading a prayer from your prayer book. Okay. Maybe you're getting on your knees and you're having a more spontaneous and more conversational type prayer with God. Okay. But maybe a good practice would be for Lent, do not miss prayer for each night, and therefore then see what type of habitual patterns you've established after Lent. It's probably going to be pretty hard not to do that. And if you miss praying at night, you're probably going to know. So that might be a suggestion. Again, talk with your priest. Your priest is going to know better than I do. So, but thank you very much, Derek Cutchy, for the super chat, brother. And I hope that was useful. Again, I do recommend Father Alexander Schmemann, Great Lent. It's a good book. I really like Schmemann, generally speaking, but next super chat comes from Michael and Maria. Shout out book club. Shout out to the book club members. Michael and Maria, we will be back tomorrow night. Book club tomorrow night. Finishing up the Master and Margarita. Can't wait to see you guys there. Michael and Maria throwing $20. Thank you so much, Michael and Maria. I really appreciate it. They said, great stream. We are meant for so much than mindlessly indulging passions, whether digital or physical. Amen to that. Amen to that. Christ and his church need us. Amen to that. Thank you. Father Turbo said these dissipate and diminish us. Quiet, ascetic time and prayer are what we need. Amen. Great comment. Michael and Maria, very strong supporters of Church of the Eternal Logos. Great book club members as well. So I can't wait to chat with you guys tomorrow night as we talk about the wrap-up, the ending of the Master and Margarita. Great comment. I'll read it again. Shout out to Michael and Maria. They said, great stream. We are meant for so much than mindlessly indulging passions, whether digital or physical. Christ and his church need us. Like Father Turbo said, these dissipate and diminish us. Quiet, ascetic time and prayer are what we need. Amen to that. And so thank you so much, Michael and Maria, for the super chat. Really appreciate all your support. I really, really do. And so thank you guys. Really looking forward to catching up tomorrow night. That looks like that is all the super chats. If anybody wants to send something in or have a question or would you like to contribute for tonight, please do so. Oh, another one just hopped in here. Martiopolis. Oh, nice name. Martiopolis throws in $10. Thank you so much, Martiopolis. And he says, thanks for all the solid content, DPH. Keep knocking out of the park, brother. Quick suggestion for reading group, Tears of Repentance, True Experiences in Greek Taxicab by Athanasius Catagus. Let's see what that is. Tears of Repentance. I've never heard of that one. We generally were wanting to... Tears of Repentance. True Experiences in a Greek Taxicab. Okay. Yeah, I found it. Interesting. Yeah, 2015 book. Yeah, I'll definitely look into that. We were kind of thinking, because we've already read Master Margarita, we were kind of thinking about trying to focus the book club on reading classics. So that was our general thought, is that this would be an opportunity because, sometimes diving into like these big classic books, it's really daunting. You want to read some Dostoevsky. Well, his books are like this thick and maybe they're a little bit deep. Maybe there's things in there you don't fully understand. And so we thought maybe if we make the book club devoted towards classics of some sort, maybe it doesn't have to be Dostoevsky. We're talking about going through Moby Dick, maybe some just great novels that we can unpack the symbolism, we can unpack the narrative, we can think about things from an Orthodox perspective and bring up questions. That's kind of the general thought of the book club was thinking. There's also suggestions like you've put forth here with this taxicab. We were thinking about maybe reading this book. So the Gurus, the young man, and Elder Paisios. So that might be an option as well. We were thinking about doing an Orthodox book. I was thinking about theology, or we were thinking about a philosophy book, but it sounded like most people would have appreciated if we read classic, important books, and we just do it as a group. And so we read maybe a few chapters every couple weeks, nothing too much. And then when we meet on those book club meetings, we can work through it together. And so then we'll have 2 hours and you'll be with other Orthodox people, like-minded people, read the same thing, going through the same book, and we can reflect on it. So that was kind of the general thought. So I think y'all going to do Lord of the Rings. No, that might be, I'll bring that up though. Let me put that down. I'll bring that up to the book club tomorrow night. Lord of the Rings. That's not a bad idea. That's Tolkien. So, maybe reading Lord of the Rings. Well, since Netflix wants to bastardize his work, maybe the best thing to do is in our book club to read his works. So that might be an option. I think right now we were thinking about Crime and Punishment. Let me look. I think the number one that we were thinking about is the brothers Karamazov. And so I think this is what we were thinking about diving into, is the brothers Karamazov. And so it's a big book. It's a thick boy. But there's a lot of good stuff in here. And again, would I read through that whole thing by myself just regularly? No, because I'm always doing research. I'm always doing philosophy and history books and theory books. And so for me, as again, an avid reader, it's like, oh, well, these book clubs are great opportunities for me to dive into novels and books that I normally don't read on my everyday basis, because normally all my books are scholastic, academic philosophy, theories, all that type of stuff. So that I think this is the leading candidate right now. If you guys have read this, Fyodor Dostoevsky, The Brothers Karamazov, you probably know it's a great book. You don't get through it in a day, though. It's a big boy. So But well, I'm going to talk with the book club. So again, Michael and Maria, they're going to be their vote's going to be of quite significance tomorrow night when we kind of talk about this and see what people are interested in. But thank you so much, Martiopolis. Thank you very, very much, brother, for the $10 super chat. I really appreciate it, and God bless you and yours. Next super chat comes in from David Franco Jr. Throws in $9.99 and says, tried to donate one on Streamlabs, but won't process at this time, so got to donate here. Oh, weird. Well, I appreciate it, David Franco Jr. I'm not sure what's going on with Streamlabs. It should be working. I know I'm live right now, and it worked for some other people, so sorry about that. Not sure what's going on, but thank you so much, David Franco Jr., for the $9.99. I really appreciate it. And then it looks like last super chat comes from Christian Cox, throws in $9.99 and said, today I read Michael Witkoff's On the Masons and Their Lies. Listened to you talk. I was struck by the connection of the Masons, quote, or ideal of, quote, liberty, equality, and fraternity and technology. Yeah, very interesting, Christian. Certainly, I think it's all part of the general... we have to be careful, but the, part of my paper that's tracing these technologies of transcendence, talking about drugs, is looking at the origins of the Knights Templars, the use of inebriating substances, Baphomet, and how this relates to the development of Freemasonry as they get squashed during the Inquisition. They kind of go north to Scotland, and Robert the Bruce, King of the Scots, is there to really receive a lot of the Templars, and in fact some of them fight for him. So that whole sort of mystical, magical, technologically themed worldview, it's totally accurate, because the Masons are interested in a sort of grand technological movement towards God in one way or another. So I definitely think there's connections that you're actually drawing on there, Christian. So I definitely think there's something there. There's definitely something there. So anyways, guys, it looks like that's the end of the super chats. I just want to thank everybody for being here. Please smash that like, guys. Thank you so much for all the support. And then I want to give everybody a special shout out who supported tonight. Special shout out goes to Mikhail, the King of Kings. Thank you so much, brother, for you've been very supportive for a while. Thank you very much, Mikhail, the King of Kings. Shout out to Derek Cutchy. Really appreciate that, brother. Shout out to Michael and Maria. Michael and Maria, thank you so much for all your support. You've also been, like Mikhail, the King of Kings, have been consistent supporters of Church of the Eternal Logos, and I look forward to chatting with you guys tomorrow night as we wrap up Master Margarita. Shout out to Martiopolis for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your kind words. And I am going to bring up that book tomorrow at the book club to see if people are interested. Shout out to David Franco Jr. Really appreciate it. Sorry that Streamlabs wasn't working. I'm not sure what's going on there. And then shout out to Christian Cox. And then it looks like one more super chat. John E. throws in a super chat, says, Streamlabs isn't working. How much time do you spend with a book like the Triads so that you comprehend? Well, the Triads of Palamas, it's useful to have a philosophy background and have, be quite rooted within Orthodox theology. So, I have a technique. It's one of the reasons why you see a ruler is when I read, I go through and I'm always underlining. So as you can see, like this is a book that I was working through today that you can see, like I go through my books and I underline with a ruler because I want it to be very pretty. I want it to be very aesthetic. I want everything to be there. But when I go back through my book, I can start to tag it. I can see what points are important. I can see where the author's arguments when he says, I'm arguing for this or I'm putting this forward or anything that's useful. So when I read, I always have, these are my reading weaponry. I have tabs, a ruler, and a pencil. And that's how I mark all my reading. And so, if I go through any book, like this is another book I'm going through for Gnosticism. These are the heresies of the medieval ages. And so you can see like that paragraph, it's all underlined. That's just how I read. That obviously helps my reading comprehension and my retention of the information. It also helps all my books becoming a resource, a research resource. So every time, all my books that are here, everything that I've gone through, it all is underlined with a ruler. So when I open them back up, I can scan through and I can see, oh, okay, I must have thought this was good, this was good, this was good, here, here, here. And so it's a resource. It's always something I can always go back to, and I can always quickly find the main points, the interesting points, the points that spoke to me the most. And that's one of the ways that because I've noticed that if I get a book and I sort of just freehand, like underline, it doesn't look as good. And I tend to not use my books as resources. For me, my books, my library is my life. It is how I make money. It is how I write academic papers. And so then for my books, like, they're expensive. This book was very expensive. Go look up this book. Very expensive book. Like, I do not want to mess up my books. Like, this is another book I'm working through. When I buy my books are resources. I want my books to be useful in 30 years from now, and I want them to look good. I want them to be aesthetic. So that is one of my techniques for going through reading material. In regards to comprehending something like the triads, it depends on how much you already know and how much philosophy and theology and shout out to Alexandria. Orthodox Boomer Grandma says, my underlines are messy. Cool, DPH. Yeah. I have a method. I basically have a method to everything that I do because I want to be very organized. So that is a technique that I've had, that if almost all my reading materials I can go through, and that's the way that I kind of do my books. So anyways, guys, that's going to conclude tonight's stream. Thank you very much, John Eade. Again, so a special shout out goes to David Franco Jr., Kristen Cox, and John Eade. Sorry, I'm not sure what's going on with Streamlabs, but I am going to hop off here, and I will see you guys Wednesday, potentially with a Disenchantment stream. It's going to be Bring Your Thinking Caps. It's going to be a good one. And then I should be back. Then I'll be back Friday with Rachel Wilson to talk about the occult roots of feminism. So got some fun streams later this week. Again, thank you all for the support, and I hope you guys show up later this week. But please smash that like. Again, sign up for a website membership if you guys are interested. Sign up for a one-on-one. And I'm going to have oh yeah, I didn't even mention. Sign up for a one-on-one, or sign up, become a website member, because I'm going to be doing a members-only video critiquing Darwinian Wallace theory of evolution. It's going to be a good one. And so that's going to be just for members over at the website. I should have talked about that. I didn't even get into that. But all right, guys, I will see you all Wednesday, most likely. If not, I'll definitely see you Friday.